Hey, it's Zane, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. In today's video, I want to talk about Bitcoin self-sovereignty. Why Bitcoin is the only asset, the only monetary instrument you can own that is completely autonomous and detached from the system, and why this is so important in this changing and uncertain geopolitical and economic landscape that we're in. So I want to speak to this a little bit today. This is an area that really requires your attention. It's not an area that you should be just dabbling in or putting on the back burner. And because I talk with people every single week on my one-on-one Zoom calls, people book calls with me, and they just need help getting on their journey, making progress, maybe leveling things up with their current setup. Sometimes people are just getting started in Bitcoin and they want the simplest and most frictionless way and the safest way to onboard into Bitcoin, and I guide them. So all of this is important, and I want to talk about this for you here today. But before I get into this, just a reminder, this week I'm hosting a live Zoom event, a Zoom live stream. It's about a 90-minute presentation. I've got 2 sessions for you. It's a free event. If you'd like to join me, just type Zoom in the comments and I'll post the link for you, and you must register to attend. The 2 events, Wednesday night 7 p.m. or Friday morning 11 a.m. If you can make either of those, so that's Wednesday the 9th of July 7 p.m. or Friday the 11th of July 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Time, which is Sydney time. If you'd like to join me, 90-minute presentation. And I'm going to be talking about why Bitcoin is the new path to wealth and self-sovereignty. And I ran these events about 3 weeks ago, had great feedback. People have been asking me to do them again, so I'm doing it again this week. If you'd like to join, just type Zoom in the comments. Okay, let's talk about self-sovereignty. Let's talk about Bitcoin security. We have to understand that Bitcoin is something that you need to take seriously, and it doesn't matter how much Bitcoin that you own, because at the end of the day, whatever you have in terms of satoshis or fractions of a Bitcoin, you and I both know that as time goes on, the value of those satoshis is going to continue to go up. And you only need to look at a Bitcoin price chart over the last 16 years, and what you will see, if you zoom out, you will see that Bitcoin, its trajectory is really, really clear, up and to the right forever. And I often say that Bitcoin has no top because fiat currencies have no bottom. And so when you're pricing your Bitcoin in Australian dollars or the US dollar or the euro, what you notice is that over time, your satoshis or your Bitcoin are just going to buy you more and more dollars, more and more euros. And so this is why Bitcoin is inherently deflationary. If you're saving in dollars, we know that your purchasing power is being decimated over time. Whereas if you save in Bitcoin, we know that your purchasing power is improving over time. And once you understand that and you realize that it doesn't matter how much Bitcoin you have, if your goal is to hold on to that Bitcoin and just keep adding to your allocation through dollar cost averaging over time, eventually that Bitcoin is going to be worth something really, really significant, and I would say life-changing. And so really your only 3 jobs in Bitcoin, your only 3 tasks to pay attention to, number 1, to stack Bitcoin, stack sats as we say, stack satoshis as much as you can, when you can, as often as you can. And I think a really good goal to have is to have more satoshis at the end of the month than you started the month with. So even if it's a few $100s worth, it doesn't really matter. Every satoshi really, really matters. And so goal number 1 is to stack like a mad person, as hard as you can, as quickly as you can. Look at things you don't need. Think seriously about deploying some of that long-term savings or capital into Bitcoin if you have a 4 to 5 year time horizon where you don't need that cash. These are the kinds of things that you should be really considering right now if you've done the work on Bitcoin and you understand what this asset is. Secondly, you want to hold your Bitcoin, and in Bitcoin we say HODL, H-O-D-L, hold on for dear life. quieten the noise. Quieten the noise. There's a lot of noise out there, not just in Bitcoin, but in society. And all of this noise, I would argue, is designed to shake you out of your Bitcoin. And so, it's really important that you just understand the value of the asset that you hold. You quieten the noise, you keep your head down, you keep focused on what you're here to do. If you've already done the work on Bitcoin to a degree and you understand what this asset is, you shouldn't be listening to any of this stuff. Negative sentiment. People saying that why are you involved in Bitcoin? Is it going to survive? What's the government going to do to it? Is it going to be banned? What about these Bitcoin treasury companies and these ETFs? Why don't you just buy that and not worry about it? If you buy an ETF or a Bitcoin treasury company, you don't own real Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an asset that is meant for absolute ownership. It is meant for you to take self-custody of it. And if you don't self-custody your Bitcoin, you'll never be able to benefit from the self-sovereignty promise of Bitcoin. And so having an ETF or exposure to a treasury company, I know that, they're all saying that they're doing 3 and 4 times the returns of Bitcoin, but all you're really doing there is plugging into financial engineering, highly leveraged plays that aren't going to end well inside the fiat system. And for me, I just don't understand why you would do that when Bitcoin is the opposite of that, is the opportunity to be on a life raft outside that very system. And so playing games inside a fiat system, trying to just earn more fiat dollars, makes no sense to me when the ultimate promise of Bitcoin is to be detached from that system and to be financially autonomous. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below, because so many people are getting caught up and seduced by all of this noise out there, and people who think they own real Bitcoin, but they actually don't. And so hodling is not just about hodling onto your Bitcoin, but it's also hodling onto your mindset and understanding that the only way to own real Bitcoin and to benefit from the freedom technology that Bitcoin offers is to not get involved in these crazy, highly leveraged fiat games, which I believe are going to end in tears anyway. And then the third job that you have, the third task you have, besides stacking and hodling, is to secure your Bitcoin. Secure your Bitcoin. Bitcoin security is absolutely critical. Now, this is the area that a lot of people don't spend enough time on. They think they've got their Bitcoin, they've bought it on the exchange, they're happy with that, they've put their queue in the rack, they've shut up shop, and they say, well, that's all I need to do now. But no, this is just the beginning. What you now need to do is you now need to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Now, why is this important? The reason this is important is because rule number 1 in Bitcoin is not your keys, not your coins. Not your keys, not your coins. And so when you have your Bitcoin stored on an exchange or with a broker, your Bitcoin is stored at their wallet address, not yours. Now, even though you may have an account in the name of that exchange or in the name of that broker, if something happens to that institution, which we've seen in the past, this can and does happen, then you lose your Bitcoin. And so this is why people who have had a bad experience in Bitcoin, 9 times out of 10, it's for one of 2 reasons. Either they don't understand the asset they hold and they've tried to time the market and sold their Bitcoin during a pullback because they didn't zoom out and hold Bitcoin for the long term the way that it's meant to be held, or they left their Bitcoin on an exchange and the exchange has blown up and unfortunately their Bitcoin has gone with it. And so you don't want your Bitcoin stored on an exchange for the long term or with a broker. Yes, short term, temporarily, there's no issues. But you want to be moving your Bitcoin into self-custody as quickly as you can, because once that Bitcoin is transferred from the exchange to your private wallet address, that Bitcoin is now secured on the blockchain, on the ledger, to your private address. Okay, and so we have to keep remembering that Bitcoin, all that it is is a giant ledger that sits in cyberspace that moves value from point A to point B and keeps a record of who owns what, not by individual name, but by wallet address. And so a wallet that you have, that you own the private key for, you have the seed phrase, the 12 words or the 24 words saved in a safe location offline. This is what generates what's known as the private key, the destination address for that Bitcoin, for those Satoshis. And when you transfer that value from point A, be it an exchange, be it a broker, be it somebody trying to send you sats or Bitcoin, we're seeing a lot of people now starting to embrace these platforms that enable you to be paid in sats rather than fiat currency. And I know several businesses now that they won't even accept dollars anymore. They only accept Bitcoin. And they're really pioneering and front-running this new parallel economy and circular economy movement. All of this is going to expand. But in any event, regardless of where the sats are coming from, regardless of where that Bitcoin is coming from, when they send it to an address generated by your private wallet, that Bitcoin is now tied to you. You are now in control of that Bitcoin. Now, we know that there are two forms of wallet. You can have a hot wallet, which is a software wallet, typically a desktop wallet or a app that you will download onto your phone. These wallets is that the key, the seed phrase, is generated online. And so even though it's okay for, I would say, a small amount of Bitcoin, or as a first step, if you're sending a small amount of Bitcoin from an exchange just so that you can get comfortable with the process, but ultimately what you want is you want to have your Bitcoin in what's known as cold storage. And so you need a hardware device that generates the private key offline rather than online. And this just ensures that you minimize or actually eliminate any potential malware or hacks, any kind of situations that typically can happen online. You're separated from all of that when you have a hardware device that generates its key completely offline. And this is why typically I generally recommend air-gapped wallets. So these are hardware devices that don't plug into the internet in any way, shape or form. There's no cable that you plug into your computer. And it speaks to your software wallet via QR code. And when you do this, you are basically adopting what is widely considered the most secure way to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. And so you want an air-gapped hardware device. You want a Bitcoin-only hardware device. So you don't want a device that's, supports a myriad of other cryptocurrencies, because again, you leave your self open to all kinds of different cyber security threats and risks. So you don't want to be co-mingling your Bitcoin with other cryptos on the same wallet. And preferably you're Bitcoin only anyway, so this is not a concern to you, but just ensure that you get yourself a Bitcoin only wallet, a wallet that only supports Bitcoin, not other cryptos. And thirdly, you want one that is open source. You want to ensure that the code is completely verifiable on-chain, online, and you don't have any layers in between that is tied to the particular company that is producing or providing the hardware device. And interestingly enough, some of the biggest names in the hardware space, they're not open source. And this is a real concern. And we've seen many red flags in the past 12 to 18 months surrounding this. And so I just really highlight to you that if you're in Bitcoin, you understand what Bitcoin is, you believe in it, it's really important that you secure it in the right way. And that means ensuring that you get your hands on the right cold storage devices, air-gapped, open source, Bitcoin only. That would be my recommendation. I'm going to be covering this in a little more detail this week on my live Zoom sessions. Again, just type Zoom in the comments if you'd like to join me. I'll send you the link and you'll need to register. But Bitcoin isn't just a side hustle. It's not just a side hustle. It's something you need to be paying attention to. You have the opportunity in Bitcoin to be your own bank. No friction, no counterparty, no permission required. And in an environment where we can see the increasing, threats to banking, we see that people are starting to struggle to have frictionless access to their money. I know people who have actually been debanked in the past few months in this country by major banks, being told that you've got 30 days to take your money out of the bank. We don't want your business anymore. I know people who have struggled to get access to their money to buy Bitcoin. Certain banks, certain exchanges, their money and the transactions are getting blocked. That is a problem. But there is solutions, thankfully, and this is kind of what I talk about on my one-on-one Zoom calls with people, and we always have the best solution, and everybody's really thankful that they no longer have to worry about having these friction moments and these blockages on their accounts, which is a real problem for many people. We also know people struggling to get access to their money, going down to the bank, trying to get a few $1,000s out, being told that the money's not there today. All of these things are very, very concerning in my opinion. I'd love to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments whether these are things to be worried about or not. And we also know that globally we're in an environment where everything is trying to be centralized. In October, Europe is bringing out their central bank digital currencies. And so people are going to have their money tied to the central banking authority of Europe, which is going to eventually be able to really control people's spending habits, link their money to their digital ID, to their carbon credit score. How about their medical history? How about their social credit score? All of these things now can be centralized, and this is really the way that people's lose their freedoms, because once your money is no longer accessible by you without constraint, then all of a sudden you've sacrificed your freedom for what they would deem is safety. And unfortunately, in Europe, what they've also announced is that they're going to be deploying or instituting what is known as a strategic reallocation of savings. And this is a real concern, because basically what it means is that those who have savings in a bank and have been there for some time, they intend to help themselves to those savings in order to what they've deemed to be protecting Europe. And so you can read into that what you will, but all of this is a worry. Don't think Australia is immune to it. We are part of the globalist agenda. When it comes to banking, I think we're at a time and place now, whereas if you've done some homework on Bitcoin, you understand that it is not just number go up, but it is freedom money. You need to be paying attention to doing this right. And I think that that's where you should be focused right now. So stack, hodl, secure. If you want to join me on my Zoom sessions this week, please type Zoom in the comments. I'd love to see you there. We'll be covering this in a little more detail. But I think I'll leave it there today. Don't want to give you too much more to think about. I think that's enough for today. Hopefully some insight and some tips for you to work with. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. I'll see you in the next one. This is Zane signing out.